second term, which came close to imploding over Iran-Contra, ended on a very high note because he and Gorbachev, you may remember his last several months, it was almost like the farewell victory tour. The Cold War was beginning to wind down. Glasnost was looking like it was a reality. Gorbachev came here just toward the end of Reagan's term, and there was this love fest between Mr. Cold Warrior, Mr. Anti-Communist, and Gorbachev. And so for him, even though he did not succeed at the Reykjavik summit in abolishing all nuclear weapons, which petrified his own staff, as I remember, there was some real progress made toward a whole different relationship between the soon-to-be extinct Soviet Union and the United States. And who's to say, I mean, if you're an optimist, maybe something in the Middle East happens that makes things better.
Let me just jump in here for a second, just to pick up on a visual on the screen. The president is now using these license plates, Washington, D.C. license plates, taxation without representation.
Yeah.
What's going on there, Olivia? This is a sort of a local...
Yeah, this is a major local issue, major symbolic local issue. Taxation without representation. As you know, Washington, D.C. does not have full voting rights in the U.S. Congress. And so the president, well, the White House has come out in favor of D.C. statehood once or twice in the last 4 years. They've never made it never made a sustained push. And advocates of D.C. statehood are thrilled by this decision to put those license plates on the presidential vehicle. They were put on in the last weeks of the Clinton administration, taken off in the first weeks of the Bush administration, and now they're back on.
Gee, you think there's a coincidence that the Republicans ain't so keen on putting two dead sure Democratic senators every 2 years in the U.S. Senate? Call me madcap.
If Guam could deliver two Republican senators as a deal here, D.C. would have had voting rights a long time ago. As I remember, the actual law, because it's federal law governing D.C. license plates, says there could be no advocacy. So the phrase "no taxation without representation" was deemed to violate the law because it, even though it's taken from the Declaration of Independence era, it seemed to have advocacy. So it became the descriptive taxation without representation.
As we watch the finale here in terms of the Capitol's role in Inauguration Day, as the president and vice president hop into their armored limos and prepare to begin the inaugural parade back toward the White House, from which they will be reviewing the parade. Let's get it out to Dan Kleffler, who's on the National Mall. ABC News correspondent Dan Kleffler standing by with a guest. Dan, hi.
Good afternoon to you guys as well. The sun is out now. It's actually warmed up pretty nicely. We've cleared out, but we did manage to secure the editor of Urban Daddy in D.C. here, talking a little bit about how the scene has changed here, how there has been a younger vibe in the past couple of years. And Jeff, I'm just kind of curious to find out, you know, in comparison to the Bush years and now into the start of the second term for President Obama, the dynamics has changed here, has it not?
It has changed a little bit, and I don't want to say that the president is responsible for everything that happens in the city, but there is a little bit of a trickle-down effect. During the Bush years, of course, Bush was an early to bed, early to rise kind of guy, and I think that permeates his staff in terms of how they go out and what they do, whereas the Obamas go to bed a little later, wake up a little later, I think, and as do their staff. And the Obamas really have led the way, at least in one part, with the restaurant renaissance we've seen here in the city.
Right.
They're going out all the time, trying some of the best restaurants, the best chefs, in a lot of ways putting some of these chefs on the map even.
Has there been a cultural shift? I mean, I know politics always drives this city, clearly, but at the same time, though, there seems to be smaller industries that are popping up and seem to be taking over a little bit of the whole.
No question. And it coincided a little bit with Obama's inauguration in 2009. We've seen it over the last 4 years. On a macro level, I think there's just a lot of money coming into this city because people have realized that the economy here has been good relative to the rest of the country. So people are moving in, investments coming in. And on a smaller, more anecdotal level, it's not just a government town anymore. I think that's important. And people are starting to realize that we're having these creative pockets pop up. The arts, you know, artisan furniture makers. We've got a beer culture here now. There were 0 breweries here 4 years ago.
Right.
Now there are 4, just since Obama's been in office. And again, going back to the restaurants, same thing. Our chefs, a lot of them now are nationally recognized guys.
I can certainly tell you that even though the fact that there are now only 2 official balls, which seems very funny to kind of scale it back from 10 to go down from 2, that the nightlife, especially this past weekend, has still obviously been very ratcheted up, and it hasn't all just been presidential driven.
Yeah, there's still a sense of excitement here, even though in terms of sheer numbers, this isn't what 2009's inauguration was. We've got the 2 major balls here, and then underneath that I think you've got what I would call the semi-official balls, things like the state society parties, the Texas black tie and boots ball, or the Kentucky bluegrass ball. They had a little miniature version of the Bourbon Trail that happened this weekend. But the real fun stuff is what I like to view as the totally non-official balls. This weekend you had the Vaud Ball, which was a vaudeville and burlesque ball. Tonight you've got the Brewers Ball at one of our top beer bars. They're bringing in all these great brewers from around the country. There's something called the McDonald's Owners Ball tonight.
I love it.
No word on what they're serving. Probably McNuggets on a stick.
55 million served and still smiling, right?
Right.
Jeff DeFore from Urban Daddy, thank you, sir. So obviously the fact of the matter is, if you didn't get the golden ticket to go one of the official inaugural balls, you can still have a good time here in D.C. Exactly. All right, guys.
Privilege.
Thank you, Dan Cliffler, with your guests from Urban Daddy. We appreciate it. We're looking now at the limos, the limos pulling out from the Capitol and heading back toward the White House. In front of it, you can just see, just out of frame, there was that white van that's broadcasting the movement of the motorcade live, which is actually pretty cool. 4 years ago, as I mentioned, the Obamas got out of the car twice during this trip back to the White House to shake hands along the route. That trip took 1 hour and 15 minutes. They are basically at the head of the inaugural parade, which is now running quite late, to be honest. It should have started at around 2:30. Here you can see the president waving at people gathering. We've got, I think, some nice stats on what to expect from this parade that's now kicking off. I think we've got it. We can show you. There it is. There are 8 official inaugural floats, 59 groups, various marching bands, mounted units, military unit, 8,800 people, and there we have the statistic that everybody loves: 200 animals participating. We're not quite sure what the species are. We know that 150 of them are horses. Other than that, we don't know. Every state will be represented. The parade is smaller this year than it was the last time around. And here's another stat I like. We didn't have it up on the screen, but I have it in my research Bible here. 41 unicyclists participating in the parade this year. There would have been 42, but Olivier Knox is with us on the set and couldn't get his unicycle out. But other than that, he would have been participating.
Green Transportation Initiative.
Oh, really? It is? You think so?
Actually, it was supposed to be 42 unicorns.
Oh, really?
But
Is it a typo?
They had to adjust.
Here's my favorite and only parade story.
I can't believe you only have
I
one
have
parade.
two,
Okay.
but I have to say, the frivolous one, although it does tell you how things have changed. It's 1953. It's a huge parade because it's the first time a Republican's been president in 20 years. So it's a big deal. And a trick rodeo rider riding along past the reviewing stand with prior agreement throws a lasso around President Eisenhower. Now, 2 things occurred to me. One, that means there was no bulletproof glass back in 1953, which makes a lot of sense. The second thing is, if that happened today, I shudder to think what the Secret Service response would be. I mean, that guy at best would be flat on his back. The more serious parade story, in 1961, John Kennedy's watching the parade, and he notices that the honor guard of the Coast Guard Academy is all white. And he turns to a young aide, Dick Goodwin, and he says, "Find out." It turns out there had never been a black cadet at the Coast Guard Academy. And within a year there was. So that was the only example that I know of. There may be others where an actual policy was changed because of the president watching the parade and saying, "What's this?" Another way to show, I mean, think about the change over 50 years. There was no black cadet in the Coast Guard Academy, and today the guy watching the parade as president, you know,
it's extraordinary.
would not have been allowed to be in that academy 50 years ago.
Let me bring in one more guest here. Tracy Allen is an event planner. She did a couple of the inaugural parties back in 2009. She's consulting on several of them this year. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing great. Very pleased to have you. I'm just curious, What's the difference in the tone and tenor of the celebration this time around versus 2009? I mean, just the math alone tells a story. 10 balls in 2009, only 2 this year. What's your view?
Yeah, I think that, even though there's only 2 official inaugural balls this year, it's still a great time to celebrate. The city is still excited. There aren't as many people that came to Washington this time around, but there's still buzz, and it's still a very good time to celebrate what's happening today.
And are these balls actually fun to go to?
Oh yeah. They're definitely fun. You've got to like crowds. You have to like to people watch. You're going to interact. You're going to stand. Hopefully, you're going to be wowed between the entertainment and the festivities. Go have fun, talk, meet people, make friends, and have a good time.
And how fierce is the competition to be able to host one of these balls? I mean, if they're only going to do 2, it's pretty tough to become a host or to get an invite.
Yeah. I mean, to host, competition is fierce. I was speaking with several of my colleagues. There's different bids, requests for proposals out to host the ball. So, unfortunately, a lot of people, were disappointed. Having said that, to get a ticket is still quite hard as well, because with less balls, less opportunities to see the president for the official balls, it's pretty tough. So you've got to be, talking to everyone and pretty strategic.
Tracy, there were a lot of unofficial balls this year, though. There were, ones where the invitation said people in Hawaiian shirts will not be turned away. There was a vaudeville and burlesque ball. What looks to you like the most fun official ball this year?
Oh, the most fun official ball? I would say at the convention center. I mean, it's definitely going to be the most packed. It's the People's Ball. I live a block from the convention center, so I've had an opportunity to see, people start rolling in, getting set up several days ago, and from the trucks and the vendors and, the tents and the canopies and the lighting crews and everyone. I always like the one at the convention center because it's massive. But I think that if you have an opportunity to go to the unofficial balls, like the Hawaiian ones, and definitely go watch. There's going to be live streams, and have a good time.
There were a lot of 5-star packages offered by some of DC's best hotels. Obviously, this is something of a stimulus package for the local tourism industry. About how much does it cost to rent a hotel ballroom and throw a good-sized, let's say, a few hundred people inaugural party?
A few hundred people, of course, it depends on the hotel, but I mean, you're talking upwards to do it right to the nines. It could be several $100,000s to put it together between the entertainment and the lighting and the decor, bringing in the rentals. You're talking food and beverage, the reception, cocktail hours, hors d'oeuvres, multi-course seated dinner. It can be pretty pricey, but it's all about the experience and it's all about the celebration. We tell our corporate clients, make it about the experience, and people will have a good time.
Tracy Allen, such a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We continue to watch this sort of slow speed chase through the streets of Washington, D.C. here. A lot of tubas and that marching band, and the president at the front, at the helm, the president and the first lady in their bulletproof limo, rolling through the streets of D.C. as we observed on their way from the White House to the Capitol. One of the perks of this job is you can drive right down the middle of the street and nobody says anything to you about it. At some point, we expect him to get out. If past his prologue, he will get out a couple of times with his wife and shake hands. They've made no promises on that front, but that has become part of the ritual ever since, I believe, Jimmy Carter walked the whole way back from the Capitol after his inauguration in '76. But he walked half the way, per Jeff Greenfield, who would know.
As I recall,
Walter
the
would know,
the
you were
Secret
serving that
Service did
administration.
not love this idea, as I recall.
I'm sure they don't love any president getting out. This is probably their least favorite time of year.
But is this a moment where I can talk about my own experience with inaugural parade tickets and inaugural ball tickets?
If you're talking about the possibility of you relating a personal anecdote, there's no wrong moment for that.
Well,
Walter
I mean,
Shapiro.
there
Just wanna
is,
say
for
that.
example, Sam Donaldson was waiting, or was waiting to come in. In my only brief respite from journalism, I worked on the 76 Carter campaign, and by January 20th, 1977, I was broke and so desperate for a government job. And given an offer of 2 inaugural ball tickets and 2 parade tickets, I couldn't afford the parade tickets. So I sprung everything I had on the 2 inaugural ball tickets. The inaugural ball, and this was a supposedly glamorous thing that I will never do again, involved a 1-hour coat check line with my girlfriend of the moment and my coat on a very cold night. Then it was a cash bar. There was no place to put the drinks when you were finished, and they were in plastic cups. So by 10:30, the floor was littered with little plastic cups. And dancing involved 1 step. Second step, you crash a cup. Third step, you get stuck on the floor with